How you been, Melissa?
I'm good. Way back in the day,
Yes,
huh?
yes, indeed. Hey, look, it's been 13 years since I left. How long has it been since you
I
left a
think
little
I
earlier?
officially was no longer an ESPN employee in 2007.
Okay, there you go.
So, I don't know, math,
So
9 years.
Where'd you take this? Where'd you come up with this idea for the expansion of the regular season? Where did this come from?
Yeah, so I stole it from a new friend of ours who's an anesthesiologist. So he's, very into players' health.
Okay.
And we're just we're at a cocktail barbecue kind of thing last weekend, and I guess this is something he had discussed with a lot of his colleagues. Let's make this year round. That was his premise. And I was like, okay, well, obviously that's a no-go. So I just thought about it all week and concocted this formula. I went into my, magical schedule-making room, and this is what came out.
Okay, so give the listeners and viewers of this show a general idea of just what a schedule would look like, just eight-team schedule.
So it would be 22 weeks of the regular season. It would include 6 byes, which I already heard you hate.
Well, I don't. No. Hate is a word. My wife and I, who you also know, teach our children never to use the word hate. I dislike it intensely.
Okay.
But I think it's too many. But go ahead and put it all out there before.
You're not in favor of 6 bye weeks.
No.
I get it. That's fine. You're definitely not alone. But the idea was very focused on player recovery. I mean, and players coming back from injury. You look at like a Tony Romo clavicle situation, but just generally just the wear and tear that players undergo, in the hope being that could kind of normalize a little bit. So in the off season, they're not getting maybe 100 surgeries. It was one thought. And the other part of that is that Christmas week would be a bye. I mean, it's unfortunate the schedule this year that Christmas is actually an NFL Sunday.
It is.
But I know it's terrible. But in theory, that week would be a bye week. So we wouldn't be playing football this Christmas if the schedule was enacted. And the idea is that, players could have more time to, again, aside from healing, just marketing and all the stuff that they get to do in their little short window as an NFL player in season. Obviously, more weeks of football means more TV revenue. I think this is probably the key component of this plan. So we have more TV revenue. That spills over to players. Obviously, it spills over to owners, which is really the key. Those are pretty much the talking points. And as you discussed before the break, it spills right into March Madness.
Yeah,
so we get rid of the February doldrums, which is, just the most horrific month of the year.
It is, and
it also a word.
It also gets rid of the May doldrums too, because you're pushing probably the draft into May and the combine deeper into March, and you're also condensing the offseason, which I know the NFL is trying to figure out a way to do all of that. But I mean, 6 bye weeks seems to me something that would not only destroy the momentum of a playing season, but also, as one of my members of the Chris Command Center point out, for fantasy football, how would you work enough action in those 6 bye weeks with the teams that aren't on their bye weeks? How would you work something like that?
Oh my gosh, it would be amazing for fantasy. That was actually a big. I didn't talk about that in the article, but I love it for fantasy. I mean, your draft goes from 9 bench players to 12 bench players, and basically the whole idea of waiver streaming becomes its own art form, which is awesome because, fantasy football is great, but it can certainly use a shakeup at this point. So I actually think this really feeds into fantasy.
So how many teams would be off in your plan?
It depends. As I had structured it before the Christmas break, there'd be a bye week every 2 games, and each team would have a bye week there'd be a 3-game period in there for every team. So like I think I said in the article, week 2, you might have 10 teams off because they're starting their first bye and whatnot. So I don't know about you. Obviously we're both in this profession. It's a grind. It's a grind to try to watch all these games at once, especially that 1 p.m. Sunday time. I can't keep track. I have to go back and watch film and replays and all of that just to know what's going on. I feel like this creates a situation where for fantasy owners, for general fans of the NFL, you could actually seep in this league in a very broad way that you can't really do right now.
And the other aspect of it, I think that it seems like well-intentioned, Melissa. I'm on Melissa Jacobs of Sports Illustrated, also the footballgirl.com website, is getting a Pro Bowl of any sort in the middle of the season. You know as well as I would, no players of any note in the middle of a season would ever travel to go be part of like a superstars contest or something like that.
Well, yeah, I don't know that I agree with that. I think, as I said in the article, I think if you tie it to foundation work and the NFL actually makes a sizable donation to the player that wins each skills competition, and again, it's a skills competition. It's not a put on pads and beat each other up competition. So that's a key, distinguishing factor. I think players would go for it. And I think kind of like, the NBA model, I mean, you don't have to have your Aaron Rodgers when you're talking about skill competition. I mean, yeah, for, maybe an accuracy toss or a deep toss, you'd want him in theory, but you're just kind of marveling at their athleticism. That's really what the point of this would be.
Okay, so what you've run this up the flagpole. What reaction have you received?
Yeah, I was hanging out with Roger earlier today. I mean, he's thinking about it. He's going to take it to Charlotte. We're going to meet again next week. So
Federer,
I don't know. You're kind of the face of the NFL, so I'm hoping you can move it forward.
Well, we've forwarded certain ideas. Chris Law's idea on how to save the kickoff. We forwarded that to the commissioner. The fact that Chris Brockman was stealing milk out of a community fridge when we were in Chicago, we brought that to the commissioner's attention.
Yep. That is a big deal, yeah.
So, I don't know, we can run this up the flagpole.
Yeah, here's another one. I implore you to do it. I would love it.
Okay, we'll see how it flies. Before Melissa goes, I've allowed one of the members of the Chris Command Center the floor to ask about a back-in-the-day question. Which one of you is going to do it?
Have at it, Law.
Okay.
All right, well, this was discussed between us, so this, although I'm the voice of the question, it may not only be me. So you were around then when there was another behind-the-scenes person there that was being courted by one Rich Eisen.
Oh,
how many attempts did he hold the door for her? How many attempts did he have?
I don't know how privy you were, Melissa, to my courting Susie.
Yeah, I was kind of before that. Well, here's the thing. I was on the radio side at the time, and it was like a thing that people didn't talk about in my world, but everyone knew about. It was very big in the ESPN rumorville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing.
No.
I mean, a lot of people date there, get married. I mean, it's a thing, right? It's Bristol. Who else are you going to date? So.
Well, we've heard Susie's side of it and how many times he was shut down, and then eventually you're persistent and you came back around and got her.
See, that was a good question right there, Law. That was good. But Melissa wasn't terribly privy. But so people were talking? Melissa, really?
Yeah. I mean, not in a bad way, just in a sort of, we don't have anything else to do, so let's try to dissect your love life way. That's pretty much the truth.
Melissa, thanks for joining. It really was a great food for thought article when I read it, and I'm glad I brought it to the attention of those here who might not have already seen it. And we'll see how it flies. We'll run it up the flagpole.
Right. Thanks, I appreciate it.
You got it. It's Melissa Jacobs at The Football Girl.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.